Thank you for joining Christine Crockett-Smith as she shares insights and parenting strategies from her gold medal winning book, 18 Master Values, Be the Parent You Wish You'd Had, a great resource for peaceful parent-child relationships.
Hello there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so glad you're here, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching this later. My goal is to help parents be better parents, and that's what these shows are going to be about. Hopefully you'll come away with some kind of a nugget, something you haven't thought about, something that helps you be better at being a parent. And I am so thrilled today. I have a friend of mine joining me, Kim Muench, and you want to tell them just a little bit about who you are?
Absolutely. I'm a JAI certified parent coach. I work specifically with the moms of preteens and teens to help them develop healthier, happier relationships, and that has a lot to do with working on themselves, working on the parent, much like your book.
So important. You know, one thing that I learned when I started getting into this and having these conversations is quite often when you're speaking to a parent about issues that they're having with their children, it is a personal problem, and sometimes it's a relationship problem. Sometimes it's the two parents are not on the same page, and that's the work that needs to be done. It's almost never the kids. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely. I think that in one of the chapters you mention that you can't truly love your child until you truly accept and love yourself, and I think that is very true. And I think that people can go throughout their entire life not questioning or examining anything that they've taken in or, learned as a child. There's real value in looking back to move forward, and I talk about that with moms all the time.
Oh, I love the way that you say that, looking back to move forward.
Yeah.
You know, one thing, as I've been out talking about the book since it's come out, one thing that I say is that people have to give themselves permission to dismiss anything that was dissonant that they were told. And it's amazing to me how that word has been like this thunderbolt for people sometimes, that they are living under the umbrella of things that they've been taught to believe by their clergy or their parents or the people in their lives, and giving them permission to step back, to look back and go, okay, wait a minute. That's one of our greatest jobs, isn't it? Is just helping people know to do that.
Right, and one of the things I didn't say initially was that I'm the mother of 5 children between the ages of 13 and 31.
Right.
And the reason that I really got involved in parenting is because in 2008, my oldest son, who was 20 at the time, it became very clear to me he had an addiction to alcohol. And that was really what prompted me kind of looking within myself at the way I had grown up, at the way I was parenting my children at the time, and knowing that I wanted stronger, deeper connections with my children. And to do that, I had to release some of the control, and which sounds maybe counterintuitive.
It's so important. People don't realize how key that is.
Well, and it's not an easy thing to do, right? But so it was in 2008 that I really started this journey and looking at what does it really mean to be a parent? Is it about control or is it about guiding them? And I truly believe, and this is what I help moms do, is to pull back, look within themselves, and learn how to be that guide, especially during the teen years, to their children, to release what their expectations and their agenda is in order to allow that child to come naturally forward and be who they're meant to be.
Be who they came here to be. Yeah, that's one of my big things. I say a lot that all disappointment comes from expectation, and it's kind of what you just said about for a parent to understand that they're not only are they not meant to control their children, that's not the goal, but we can't. I remember when my kids were little, one of the earliest things I learned was that when a child feels out of control, one of the things that they'll do is, if they've been potty trained already, they'll revert, because that's one thing that they have absolute control over. And so here's the parent getting even more annoyed and more controlling when they don't even realize that that's what's causing the problem.
I would say that and food, right? Like, you cannot make somebody eat your picky 2-year-old that doesn't want to eat. I mean,
Right?
I say, I wanted to just say this, that our children come through us, not for us, but for the lessons that they reflect to us in their journey as they go along their way, right? And to help us grow up.
Oh, yes. One of the things I say is we learn more from them than we teach them if we just pay attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're our best little teachers. So one thing that I want to do in this show, at least in the beginning, is I want to make sure that we cover each of the values in the book. And so you have generously agreed today to talk about the first two, which are love and positive attitude. And I think, you know, if you were only going to read one chapter, I think love would be it. I think that it solves a lot of problems if you can just realize how important that piece is on a daily basis.
You referred to love never feeling icky, right? And then you give an example of a father taking a belt out, right? And that immediately prompted me to think about my own childhood and a situation that I was in when I was in 4th grade. And my parents, we had moved midway through the year, and I was really having a struggle with my new school and whatever. One day in the springtime, I decided I'm going to run away at recess. I'm going to run home, like I'm done with the school. And I got home and I got like the biggest beating of my life. And that's really the only time. Like, I want to preface that. I don't want to like throw my parents under the bus. But the reason that my dad did that and said to me in the process of that is, this hurts me more than you.
Oh my gosh.
So when you said that in the book, I was like, yeah, I've heard that before, which is totally not true. But side point, I think it was their frustration level that, you know, even if they had sat me down and said, my gosh, what is going on? You literally left school. You walked along a highway. Anything could have happened to you. We're so worried. Can we talk about, you know, instead in their frustration, in their lack of skill and just not knowing what to do, they hurt me on top of that. So it really didn't do anything to diminish my anxiety and unhappiness at the time.
Of course not. And it diminishes your trust in the people that are supposed to be protecting you and taking care of you. I actually had a friend recently tell me that that's one of the things in the book that she disagrees with, that she did use corporal punishment with her children. And I said, would you still today? And she said she would. And she defended it from the phrase that so many people use to defend it, spare the rod, spoil the child, from the Bible. But and while I respect everyone's opinions about choices that they make, but to your point, one reason that I believe parents resort to that is, number one, it happened to them, and so much of what we do is just, well, it worked for me. But so much of what, going back to the very beginning of this show, how people just didn't take the time to think about, really consciously, who do I want to be as a parent and how do I want to parent? So then when the thing shows up where they're lacking control, which they shouldn't be the goal anyway, they're so frustrated they just resort to what they know. And I think both of us feel really strongly that part of our job, not just with physical actions, but a huge part of our job is getting people to think about, just because that's how it was done to you or because someone else told you that's how it ought to be done.
Right.
It's you and it's your child.
Well, and not only who do I want to be as a parent, as you mentioned, but also what is my child feeling? You know, I mean,
right?
Rarely are we taking into account where that child might be in that moment. And I want to say that all behavior, whether it's adult, child, whatever, comes from trying to meet 6 of our basic emotional needs.
Ooh,
and that's,
tell us.
Let's see if I can remember. Put me on the spot. Acceptance, affection, appreciation, attention. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot the word.
It's okay.
Autonomy.
Okay.
And connection.
Wow.
So we're always motivated by our behavior, good, bad, or indifferent, by trying to get one of those needs met. So if you put that into context with the way that you're parenting in the moment with this child who's having a total meltdown, right? It's like, what could be going on beneath the surface of this meltdown or this screaming or whatever, and also knowing that our children aren't necessarily doing things to us. Like, you know, there's so much of parenting that gets taken so personally, and if we can, you know, kind of remove ourselves from the moment, from that very intimate relationship, just to stand back and say, what's really going on beneath the surface here, you know, and to try and, again, look at their perspective as to what's going on. That doesn't mean, hey, go there, you know, do whatever they want and
No, of course not.
let them have their way. But let's get it, you know, more perspective than this kid is doing this to me and my day is ruined and blah, 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 you know?
Yeah, because the answer to the best way to help the child work through that depends on which of those they're trying to get met. And so it would be 6 very different reactions to the child's behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an important thing to remember. And parents have to know, you know, as a mother of 5, all 5 of yours were really different, I'm sure. Yeah. So each of them came at you with a completely different set of challenges. It's not like you get to say, okay, what kind of a parent do I want to be, and write it out and then be done with it.
Mm-hmm. It's a practice. It's a practice, and it's a practice with each one of them because they are so different and their temperaments are different. I know with my son Maddox, who's at this point 15, when he was little, when he would be bored, he would get, I would call him naughty, meaning he would pick on his younger sister. And to this day, my kids now think it's really funny. Mia will say, Maddox is being naughty. That's funny. But it was when he was bored, and so I needed to redirect him into something to interest him. And then also, baths worked really well to calm him down. And I didn't necessarily, I either didn't use that or didn't work with the other ones. But I mean, really, water, for whatever reason, really changed his attitude and his tone and his, just calmed him down.
That's a beautiful example of how they can all be different. And, you know, there's your work out there, there's my work out there, there's so much work out there in the parenting world, and so many resources to look at all the different ways that you can address a child's behavior and find what works for that child in that moment.
But I also think too, and I believe this is in Love, because I only read the 2 chapters because I really didn't want to bring any other stuff in. I know the whole thing is going to be fantastic. But in that chapter, you talk about, hold on, now I totally forgot.
No, that's okay. I appreciate that you took the time to be so meticulous about the chapter.
Yes, I did want it to be very meticulous about the chapter. Let me think.
Kim, I have to interrupt you. I can't tell you how cool it is to be sitting here with my book in front of someone all highlighted.
Yes, I'm an active reader.
I love that.
I know. Let me just get to the one that I wanted to. Oh, I'm gonna just back off that
Absolutely.
and say, when love is in the room, it can be felt. That's on page 11. And I think you're right. I think our children really know when they feel heard, seen, and loved. And that's different from giving them everything they want, right? That's different from not having any rules and just letting them, you know. But when our children feel heard, then I think that goes a long way into what they bring into their friendships in school and what they bring into the world at large, right? Everything, what happens at home is the foundation for them.
100%.
And when they're seen and heard, that doesn't mean you have to agree all the time, doesn't mean you have to, you know, give in, but when you allow them to have their voice, that is incredibly helpful, and it helps them to learn to advocate for themselves outside of the home.
Right? You know, one thing I did for my teenage kids that no one else in my life was doing at the time, when they start driving, they get such freedom. And that can go several different ways. And what I said to them was, you have 100% freedom right now. I trust you 100%. Let me know where you are and who you're with all the time, and you'll maintain that freedom. If you ever get to the point that you end up somewhere that I didn't know, or you're with people that I didn't know about, it's going to have to be reduced a little bit. And they didn't have a curfew. And all of those things that I just mentioned are the opposite of trying to control them. And it is trusting them, and never had a problem. And I think you're right. They felt respected and trusted. But yeah, back to love in the room. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I feel energy. I do. And
Well, when your kids start, I've kind of watched, obviously, my kids being as old as they are, my oldest being 31 at this point. I've kind of watched them progress through their being more self-centered to a place where they ask you about your day. If you genuinely ask your child, how was your day? And they know from you that you truly care, and that, then they will talk about it. Also have found that you've got to really be there when they're willing to talk, right? I mean, my youngest two, who are the only ones at home at this point, tend to want to chat at 10 o'clock at night when I'm tired and wanting to get them to go to bed because they need, got to go to school the next morning. But you really have to be available and there for them. And I don't think you can be emotionally available to a level your child needs unless you are emotionally attached to yourself. So I think that first chapter in Love is really all about learning to look back again and seek the truth about what it is, the different values, the different things that you were taught. And then what do I want to really instill in my kids? Because I don't think we take the time to do that.
Yeah, and to make sure that you are creating a space within your home that is peaceful and filled with love, and is the place that they want to be, and that they feel safe enough to talk to you. And you don't get that when you're correcting them all the time or refuting what they said or telling them they're wrong. Yeah, and being there when they're ready. You have to have a conscious awareness. You have to have really consciously decided to pay attention to that to be able to catch them at the right time.
Well, and one of the things I want to say about this book specifically is that it's never too late to build a healthier relationship with your child. However, this is a fantastic book for moms of littles, for women who are just embarking on this journey. And it's actually a fantastic book for someone who doesn't have children, because again, it asks you to question, what did I learn about love, and is it the truth for me, and how do I want to move forward in that? How do I want to show up when it comes to loving myself and other people?
So important. Earlier in this conversation, when you were talking about part of our job is to help adults go back and reflect and decide who they want to be, not only will that make them a better parent, it will make them a better spouse and a better friend. And ultimately, I think you agree with this, I think we've talked about this, being able to be comfortable with yourself alone in a room where you don't feel compelled to have those distractions of electronics all the time is the key to having successful, healthy relationships with anybody else.
Absolutely. I am going to go to page 14 because I know I totally, there was something on 14 I really wanted to bring up. Key. To love your children in a way they deserve, and to raise them to be loving people who will spread goodness and mercy to every encounter they have, you must first learn to love yourself. I think that's the essence of what we were just talking about, right? I mean, I think so many people lose their voice over their childhood, whether it was their parents or their teachers or whatever.
All of it.
First of all, like you said, to give permission to yourself to explore and seek what your truth is, and then to live it out. It's so easy to go through the day-to-day life and challenges and whatever, and never truly take the time to think things through. I think, at least for me, through meditation has been a fantastic way to really, get quiet within myself. Oh, this is where I wanted to go. Hey, it's back. That, no matter what I say in my coaching or whatnot, I think everybody has the answers within themselves if they're willing to get quiet and really listen. I mean, I truly believe that we're so used to seeking outside information and seeking all this validation, and I got to do it this way and these 3 steps and blah 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 blah. And the reality is, nobody should substitute your decision on something or tell you exactly how to do it, because the answer is within you.
I believe that 100%. And one of the things that I say in the book is, when you have taken the time to really consciously, not just you, but with your partner, if you have a partner, decide what you want your family values to be. It does make decision making easier. And then when you've made that decision, it's easier to defend. When those other people are coming at you and saying, you can't do that, or why did you do that, or that's wrong, when you've really consciously made that decision, you're able to go, thank you. No, I'm good. But if you haven't, if you're just kind of falling through and somebody says something to you different, it can make you question yourself. So that's why I think it's really important. Did you have anything else that you want to, that's really important about love, or can we move to positive attitude?
Let's move to positive attitude.
Okay. I think having a positive attitude affects every single aspect of your life, every single day. One of the things that I said to my kids, my poor kids, they heard the same things over and over and over, but that concept of paying attention to your thoughts, because they become your words, and that becomes your actions, and that becomes your character, which then dictates your destiny. I think inside the head is where you start deciding to have a positive attitude.
Absolutely, and sometimes easier said than done. However, I loved in the initial part of positive attitude that you talk about any given situation, good, bad, whatever. Let's say bad situation. You know, you're going to lose a job, you get a bad grade, whatever.
A friend stops being a friend.
Yes, fantastic. You can change it, you can leave it, or you can learn how to deal with it. Those were your three things, and that's really reality, right?
My poor kids heard that 1,000 times.
But I bet that they're now sharing that, or will share that with their own children, right? And how true is that? You know, it's change it, or leave it, or learn how to deal with it. And you have a choice between learning how to deal with it, positive or negative. And you mentioned at the end of positive attitude, if someone has told you that you have a negative attitude, you probably have a negative, you do have a negative attitude.
I was pretty harsh with that.
But I think I truly believe that, you know, you can look at things from a positive or a negative way, and your children, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, they take that in, they internalize that. They watch us even when we don't, you know, we don't know that they're watching, and they're paying attention. And the way we respond, that doesn't mean just gloss over your own feelings and, you know, always have a smile on your face like June and Ward Cleaver, I believe you bring them in. But it means, you know, working on yourself so that you can be emotionally available to them, and when things do arise in our lives, and they always do, right? So, you know, it's generally going to get better if you have the attitude that I can deal with this. I'm strong, and I can get through this. I've had several things in my own life. Obviously, I was a teen mom, and my son, again, at 20, had an addiction to alcohol. So I've been through some challenges in my life, and everyone has them, right? It's, you know, so it's how you respond to those things.
It's the only thing we can control. We can't control circumstances. We can't control natural things that happen. We can't control other people. But we can 100% control how we decide to respond to something, not just how we respond to our children. But you're so right that they learn from watching us way more than from anything that we say. And if you're going through your life with a negative bent, that's what they're going to hear, and that's what they're going to learn. One of my pet peeves is when someone says that they're a realist, not a pessimist.
I've heard that at my house.
And I'm like, no, that doesn't, there, you know, in any situation, people's different perspectives of reality can be different and equally valid. And it's just a choice that you make that really paves the way for every day of your life and how it's going to go, how you decide to perceive things. So important.
One of the things that I like to think about is again, with our kids in different situations, having a childlike curiosity, right? You know, through the eyes of a child. If we think about our children, yes, I had 5 different, you know, personalities, even coming into the world. My first deal with colic was my 4th son.
Oh.
And, but, you know, they come in with different temperaments, but then helping them to shape the way their world looks, you know, and the way they want to be in the world, because really that is all we have control over, right? Who we're going to show up as. And I don't mean that from a performance standpoint.
No.
In fact, that's taken back to love, the love chapter. But there's so often that we perform for love, that we're not behaving authentically. And if we want our children to be authentic in their beings, we have to demonstrate that.
And we have to respect them when they are being authentic, even when it's not what we
Pretty.
would prefer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not pretty, or they're having big feelings, or, to allow them to have their feelings and just not rush to fix it, not rush to solve it, but to allow them to have those feelings and sometimes just bear witness to that.
I heard something recently that kind of blew my mind that I never thought of before. It was from an essay that was written in 2017. It was the most read essay of the year. I unfortunately can't remember the name of the author nor the essay, but I bet you could find it if you just Googled most read essay. But one thing that he mentioned, it's something about why you will marry the wrong person. I think that's the title of it. But he said two things. That either you came from chaos and dysfunction, and so you're going to be attracted to chaos or dysfunction because that's going to be your comfort zone. We've all heard that one 1,000 times. I've heard that. Everybody's heard that one. But then he said, even in those families where the parents are really consciously trying to create a great parental-child environment, I think this applies to that term that we've heard so much about, helicopter parenting, where these parents came in and so desperately wanted to do differently for their children than was done to them, and I absolutely fall into that category. We can hide our feelings. We can hide the darkness. We can hide the hard times because we're afraid, because what we think we're supposed to do is create this beautiful, bucolic situation and atmosphere for them. So we go in the closet to cry. We smile through the pain. And what that teaches a child, or doesn't teach a child, is how to deal with all of that range of emotions. So what he's saying is, so then you're going to marry the wrong person because you're not showing up fully with all of your emotions and all the range. You're not showing your anger and your sadness. And that really struck me.
You're, in a way, again, performing to what that person needs you to be, or what that perception of the relationship is, instead of being who you truly are. And I definitely am guilty of this over the years, with different relationships and whatever. But several years ago, I made the decision to kind of really look at everything that was coming into my own life, what I was reading, what I was watching on TV, who I was spending time with, all of these things, and making conscious choices over time. It didn't happen overnight.
Right.
But really wanting to, put in what's going to be beneficial to me, and then setting aside what really isn't beneficial to me. And then when I do that, I'm, again, modeling for everybody else in the house what that looks like. I think moms are the emotional barometer in their homes. And that means that it's not our responsibility. I don't want people to think like, hey, you've got to be this perfect, emotionally all put together self. It's about being honest and vulnerable and working through your own crap to be available for the small children that have come into your life.
And sometimes working through your crap publicly, and by publicly I mean within the family. Let them see you struggle through maybe having to let a friend go, or having to make a tough decision about a relationship or a job or something, and even arguing, letting them witness healthy arguing where two people have different opinions and still walk away loving each other. It's really important. I feel like I could talk to you all day. I feel like we have so much in common, and mostly just our love of children. One thing that the way that I explain why I am in the world is to diminish the suffering of children. And I feel like you share that, and there are a lot of different ways of doing that, and one of them is to help parents be better parents and help create more peace in the house. So thank you for being here. Do you want to tell the audience just a little bit more about what you do, how they can find you, how they can work with you, and how you can help them diminish the suffering of their children.
Awesome. Well, I have a website, reallifeparentguide.com. It's just one L in that real life. And I do workshops, and I do moms groups. I'm starting one tomorrow night called Moms Empowering Moms in the Dallas area for mothers of teenagers.
Can they find that on your website, information about that workshop?
No, but it's through Meetup. So they could go to Meetup and do Moms Empowering Moms, and they would be able to find it. It starts tomorrow night, just the planning meeting. So I'm excited about that. I do one-on-one coaching through a program that I developed called Let's Do This Together, the mindful approach to raising your adolescent. It's an online component, but then you meet with me once a week as well, and I can do that locally or I can do that nationally. I've not coached anyone internationally yet, but I certainly do a lot of it. Yeah, I certainly do a lot of it, via phone and Skype. So that's an 8-week course, and that totally has the ability to transform the parent-child relationship. So
I love that you're working with parents of teenagers. I feel like even quite often when a parental-child relationship is healthy and going along well, quite often those changes of hormones and insecurities that start happening in the teen years can rock that relationship, and parents don't know what to do, even the ones that really want to work hard. So I'm really glad that you're doing that work with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's my passion.
Yay. That's what we want for everyone, is being able to live their passion, right?
Yep.
And you can find me at ChristineCrockettSmith.com or 18mastervalues.com. I too do workshops, I speak, I do one-on-one coaching, and I'll do anything I can do to diminish the suffering of children. Thank you so much for being with us today. And please let both of us know how we can help you in any way. Thanks. Bye.